Okay, so we have our navigation all set up. Now we need to get on with adding our main content. So if we look at our PSD file, we can see that we have a large hero section here that contains our background image, our titles and our button. Now the titles and button are located in the carousel due to the indicators that appear at the bottom of the section here. So if we jump over to our index page, we can firstly add in our comments to separate out our code sections. So to do this, we add in an angle bracket, an exclamation mark, then 2 dashes. Then we need to add in our comment. Then we finish off our comment with 2 more dashes and then a closing bracket. Then we can place another comment at the end that finishes off our section just quickly. Okay, so now we can actually add in our section tag, and we can give this an ID which we can simply call slider. And as we know that all our slider content is actually centered, we can simply add the class here and call it text-center. That just saves us adding any styles in later. We can just do it in here and it will cover all of this section. Then we just need to close off our section. And then we simply need to add in our container, which is going to house all of our slider content. And again, we just close that div off. Now if we jump over to our PSD file, we can see that our large background image here is the only image that exists in our slider section, as the button up here is actually built within the BootStrap framework. So in Photoshop, I just select the background image, then Alt-click on the eye to remove everything else. Then we go to Image, Trim, and then simply select OK. So that just trims the canvas and gives us our background image. Obviously, if you're working for a client, then they will provide high-res images within the file, so that's actually the process you would go through. Now we just save for web again. We can actually use the JPEG for this. Then we click Save. We just need to make sure that we save this into our image folder. We can call this bg.jpg. Now to make sure you don't overwrite the file, just go back in the history panel to our original state as we did before. So the first thing we want to do here is add in our carousel. So to do this, we add in a div and give this an ID of my carousel. Then we give this a class of carousel. This basically lets the browser that we are using a carousel feature. Then we add the class of slide, which adds the CSS transitions or animation effects. So basically lets the carousel slide as the user is viewing the page. Then finally in this div we add the data write attribute and give this a value of carousel. This makes sure that the carousel should begin as soon as the page loads. Then we simply close the div off. Now if we just look at our PSD again, you can see that the only way the user can navigate through the carousel is with the indicators here. So we'll just add those in now. Now we can place these indicators in the ordered list or OL tag. And we can give this a class of carousel-indicators. Then we just close that off. Now similar to how we added in our navigation, we add in a list tag and we give this a data target, and this is where we link to our main carousel content with this ID in the main div. So we need to add in the hashtag and then give them the same values of the ID. So my carousel, you can just copy and paste that down to make sure that it's all the same. This just makes sure that these indicators are controlling the carousel and only the carousel. Next in the list we add the data slide to attribute. We'll give this a value of 0. Then we just close off the list tag. Then as we have 3 indicators, we can simply copy and paste this list tag down 2 more times and change the data slide values to 1 and 2. Now to make sure that the user knows which slide they're on, we can simply add the class of active to our first list tag. Now if we just save that off and refresh, we won't actually see a great deal, but the indicators will be in there. Now next we need to add in our content or wrappers for the slides. So we add another div, staying within our indicator div that we created earlier. And we give this a class of carousel-inner. Then we just close that off. Now we add in the actual slides or items as they are known. So within our carousel-inner div, we add another div and give this a class of item. And as we want this to be the first slide that's shown, we add the active class as well. Then we just close that div off. So if we just quickly switch back to our PSD, we can see that the main title is shown as Your Life a Photo. So this looks like it will be a H1 tag. So if we go back into our index page, we can simply add the H1 tag in and give this the same text. Then we just close that tag off. Then back to our PSD, we can see some more smaller text under that. So we can just pop a H2 tag in for this. So we can simply add this under our H1 tag and add the same text in. And then we just close that H2 tag off. And then if we again check our design, we can see that we have a button under these titles. So we can actually add the button in via our code. So we simply add the button tag and give this a type of button, similar to how we added our toggle button in our navbar. However, we now give this a class of button or BTN, then a styling class of button success, which will give us a green colour to start with. Now it won't actually match the green colour that we want, but we can change this colour when we need to in the style sheet shortly. Now there are a variety of different colours that BootStrap offers. If you have a look at the CSS section of the BootStrap website and then click on the buttons link here on the right hand side, this will give all the basic buttons that BootStrap offers, so it's certainly worth having a look through this or having a read through it at some point just to see the different varieties that are available. But now we just need to add in our text for our button, and on the first slide it's actually called slide 1, so we can add that in and then we'll just close the button off. Now if we just save that off and check our page, we can see the slide content is actually displayed, but it's hidden behind this horrible black background. So what we can do now is actually set this back to the transparent that we need in our style sheet. So in our background colour property, we just need to change that black colour to transparent. And if we save that off and refresh, we can see the actual content is in the first slide. So what we need to do now is add our other two slides in. Now all we need to do is copy our first item here and then paste it in 2 more times. But just make sure you stay within the carousel inner div. Now you just need to remove the active class from each of these we've just pasted in, making sure that you leave the first one still as it was. We also need to change the name of our buttons to slide 2 and slide 3. Now you can change the H1 and H2 tag text to anything that you like, but I'm just going to leave those the same. So if we just save that and refresh our page, we should see our first active slide appear, and then it should eventually slide through to the next 2 slides. So there is slide 2, and there is slide 3. Excellent. And that'll just keep looping through for as long as the user stays on the page. So that's our carousel added in. So now what we need to do is style it to match the actual Photoshop design, which we will go on to do in the next lecture.